So a few weeks ago, I received an email that honestly kind of broke my heart. And as soon as I read it, I was like, oh my goodness, I need to make a video about this so that you do not make the same mistake that these people did. Hey, welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, my name is Katie and I'm an adoption consultant who specializes in helping families like yours adopt from foster care. That is actually how my husband Nick and I adopted our 3 awesome kids, and so now I'm on a mission to help others do the same. So if any of that type of content interests you, definitely subscribe because it's basically what my entire channel is about. So someone reached out to me and let me know that they had been in the process to try to adopt from foster care and that they'd been using their local state agency, so not a private agency, the public one. And they had been going through the classes with them for about a year and they just felt like it wasn't a good fit for them. And so they had actually decided to leave using the state agency. But they were at a crossroads now where they were kind of like, listen, we can't afford to use a private agency. And I was kind of like, I was a little bit surprised by that. And I am not one to judge someone's financial situation. Like, I totally understand. But I don't know if you know this, but it typically only costs at most, at the very tippity top of what I've ever seen, $7,000 to adopt from foster care with a private agency. And that was in like Illinois. That is like the highest I've seen, maybe $7,500. In many states, it's free, even if you use a private agency. And in some states like mine in Ohio, it can cost about $5,000 if you're using a private agency. So I messaged her back and she had mentioned this figure of like, we don't have $20,000 to $30,000 to spend. And I was like, whoa, you're not going to be spending that much. And it was so interesting because she was so surprised. She had no clue. She was just thinking about things she had heard with adoption, or maybe she had looked up adoption agencies that specialized in domestic infant adoptions, in which case it is that expensive. And so I was like, no, actually, there are many agencies where it can be free. And I actually found an agency rather quickly in her area that was a private agency that did adoption from foster care for free. And it just broke my heart because I wish she had known that over a year ago when they started with their state agency, because they could have realized from the beginning that they had other options if their state agency wasn't what they felt like using. So today I want to talk to you about why finding the right adoption agency from the get-go is so important. Today we're going to chat about 3 reasons why choosing the right adoption agency from the start is so important. So you can avoid the same type of problem that person I talked about in my intro. Avoid those types of problems. So the first reason why it is so important to find the right adoption agency from the start is that you do not want to waste your time starting off with the wrong agency. Because here's the thing, most agencies will have some specialized classes you have to take. If you're unfamiliar with the process in general, you will have to take classes to become a licensed foster adopt family. And so what's difficult about this is that different agencies will have different requirements. While there may be some classes that are kind of the same agency to agency, you will often find that specific agencies, especially private ones, will have their own special classes they ask their families to take on top of that before receiving their license. This means that if you're not careful about what agency you choose from the beginning, you may not be able to transfer those credits, let's just call it that, transfer those credits over to the new agency. And that can mean wasting your time repeating classes that may already be pretty similar to ones you took before. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all about learning more information about adoption. It's not going to hurt you to sit through classes more than once, but we all know that adoption is a very time-consuming and stressful process. And so if we can cut down on any of that time, I think that's a win. So rather than just jumping in because you want to get started on classes and going with the first agency you find, or just jumping in with the county or the state agency, it is worthwhile to take time, slow down, take time and do thorough research. Keyword thorough. I cannot tell you how many times as an adoption consultant, I have had people tell me, yeah, I looked and I couldn't find any agencies around us that do this type of adoption. And almost always I can find them an agency pretty quickly who does. So it just takes a little bit of knowing the right things to look for and understanding more how to search. But if you really take the time to search and to understand that, then you can find some more options, a wider pool to select from, so you don't make a decision that you regret later. The second reason why it is important to choose the right adoption agency from the get-go is that the right agency will make your matching process a lot easier. One thing I always tell my clients when I've researched adoption agencies for them is I mention that when they contact them, there's a couple questions they need to ask. The first question is, do they place children in adoptions from other states? And not only are they willing, but do they have experience doing so? Because as you can imagine, if you're searching within just your state for a child that you could be a good family for, your pool is a lot more limited. And so if you work with an agency that actually has connections with other states, or they have placed children from other states with families that work with them in the past, there is a greater chance that you have a much wider pool of children who need families that you can be considered for. And that can really expedite your process and help you find kids who are looking for families in other states that may not have found a match in their own state yet. Another thing that I look for in agencies, and I have found that this is pretty rare, so I want to put this disclaimer out there, but if you can find an agency that specifically will search for children on your behalf, that is amazing. I thought that was just a given because our agency did that. They would search for kids that they thought we could be a good fit for, and they would submit our home study on those children for us. And while I was still doing it myself because I wanted to feel useful, I wanted to feel like I was helping or moving towards that goal in some way, I really didn't need to be because they were so on top of it. I have found that many agencies across the country do not do this. You are responsible for searching through photo listings from different counties, different states, maybe just within your state or surrounding ones, looking on Adopt US Kids. There are a lot of photo listings you can look at, but it is very overwhelming for you to look when you're not used to that. So if you find an agency that actually can do that for you, it is amazing. And at least in our case, I know for our youngest daughter, who we adopted when she was 2, she moved in with us when she was about 18 months. The truth was, I do not think we would have heard about her if we were searching on our own, because I think they had heard about her through a connection in another county. She hadn't been put on any photo listings yet. And so they were able to get kind of what I would say insider information before anything was posted publicly. I could be wrong about that, but that is that is what I recall, is that she was not posted anywhere. We never even saw a picture of her before we said we were interested. So it was very much because of the connections our agency had with other counties and other areas of our state. And another way that choosing the right agency can make this search process easier is that if you have a good social worker, an experienced social worker, they will understand the types of questions to help you ask while you are deciding if you could be a good fit for this child. So if you have a potential placement and they say, hey, are you interested? Here's some information about this child. Do you want to move forward? Your social worker, if they are experienced and know what they're doing, they can even help you think of questions to ask for information that you might want before you make the final decision. And the third and final reason why choosing the right agency is so important is that the right agency can offer invaluable support post-adoption. I know that the majority of you who watch my channel have not adopted yet, and maybe you have never done foster care either. And so it's really easy to think at the beginning of the process that the actual process of getting your child into your home is the most difficult part of adoption. I'm here to tell you that that is not the case. Yes, it is stressful. There is a lot of paperwork. There are a lot of things you have to kind of figure out. You have to pay for things. You have to find time in your schedule to go take classes. But I will tell you that the majority of parents realize after they've adopted how much harder it is than they thought it would be. And I'm not saying that to terrify you. I'm saying that because I want you to be prepared. That's why this is called Adopt Informed. It's much better to be informed that things could be really difficult than to be completely surprised by it later, at least in my opinion. So you will need support once your child is in your home, and great agencies will be able to provide you with wonderful support. And in my opinion, this support starts with experienced social workers where you don't have a high turnover rate of social workers in your agency. Now, if you go with the state or the county agency, just know it is far more likely that you will have less experienced social workers. It is not guaranteed. Some of them have been doing it for years, but I do know that in a lot of counties, there's a high turnover rate. It's a very stressful job with a lot of really long hours, a lot of difficult hours to go do things. They're often completely overworked. They have too many kids on their caseload, too many families on their caseloads. And so, yeah, people get burnt out from that and they will quit or they will go find a new opportunity. The problem with that is that if you don't have an experienced social worker, then you will not get the same level of support. They can try to be supportive and they can help in the best way they can, and it can still be good, but it's just not going to be great like it would be with a caseworker who's had a lot of experience working with adoptive families and with adopted children. So one of the benefits of working with an agency with experienced social workers is that because they have had a lot of experience with adopted children, they will recognize some types of behaviors you may see, and they can kind of let you know like what's normal, what they've seen a lot, kind of where you rate on the scale of other cases that they work with. And that can be really helpful. Like there were definitely times where I felt like I was doing a horrible job, like my kids were just doing awful. And my caseworker was there to be like, listen, your kids are doing great. And I don't think you need to be worried. This is normal behavior. We see this a lot. It'll start to fade over time. And you just got to keep doing what you're doing. So that type of advice was really encouraging. Now, we had the blessing of our agency. All 3 women who ran this agency were also adoptive parents. So not only did our caseworker, Mary, have experience with working with adopted kids, she had adopted children herself. And some of those children were adults. And so that was very helpful to have her perspective as someone who's parented an adopted child all the way through to adulthood. And another way that your agency can help you in that post-adoption time is agencies like ours offer support groups, and that can be awesome. Now, I will be the first to say that we have not taken advantage of our support group. We went a few times. To be honest, there was like one lady who would just talk the entire time, and there wasn't really a chance for other people to talk. But I do think that if you had like maybe a better moderated group, it would be an awesome, awesome help. And I do remember hearing a couple of the parents share about things they were going through and thinking, wow, like I felt that way too. And that can be super helpful. And you have the caseworkers there helping and offering their perspective as not only adoptive parents, but also as caseworkers with professional experience. Sometimes too, these types of agencies may have special events where all the adoptive families from their agency can get together, which that is awesome too for you to be able to make connections with other adoptive parents and help your kids make connections with other adopted children so that they see that there are families that look like theirs and they're not the only one going through it. So that is always very important. Community is obviously so important in a situation like this. And another thing that our agency offered, which I don't know how common it is, but it's pretty cool, is they actually offer a helpline that is a 24/7 helpline. So if you had a kid in crisis, you had a parenting situation that you were just completely not sure about, there was this line 24/7 that you could call, and it was through like a national agency, not just the 3 women that we worked with. But those are all things that agencies can offer. If you have options locally of multiple agencies, definitely do that research, compare and contrast, make sure you've chosen the right agency. And like I said, you're not going to get all of these things. For most agencies, there are going to be some things that they do or do not offer, and that's okay. But you want to look from the pool that you have in your area and pick the one that you think is the best of the options you have available. Now, if you are interested in everything about finding an adoption agency, I know that is one of the biggest questions I get over and over and over again is how do I find an agency that's actually good? you are going to want to subscribe to the channel because the next 4 to 5 weeks, I am doing a series completely about finding the right agency. So we're going to talk about the difference between a state agency and a private agency. We're going to talk about specific things you should look for, even more depth, to find the right agency for you. And at the end, I'm also going to give you a resource to help you be able to find an agency. So if any of that interests you, please subscribe. And if this video was helpful or opened your eyes in any way, if you could give it a like, that is honestly the nicest thing you can do for my channel because it just helps more families find this information so more kids can be adopted. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you are having an amazing day and I will see you next week.